Hey everybody, this is Josh with another video on MuLab. This video is in response to a question that I've recently gotten about how I would go about fading in an instrument track. Now there are a couple of ways, actually probably more than that, different ways that you can do this. And I'll show you in this session I have open here how I've chosen to do a similar effect and another way that you can do something like this. Basically, the idea is that you want to take the sound of an instrument that it's making and gradually fade it in over time. So it starts off soft or at zero and fades into a certain point. I'll just play this track here so you get an idea of what an effect like that could achieve. This first part's just a short intro, sort of introducing some of the elements that you will see throughout the track. This is not done, but this will give you an idea of what I have so far. And then there'll be a build up, and then you'll have like a drop where the main parts of the track come in. Okay, so what I'm going to focus on is this sound right here, this power lead. And if I solo that, hear how it starts out almost muffled. It's not completely gone. It's not starting at zero, but it's more of a very muffled, subdued sound that fades into something that's much more big and louder. Okay, so what I've done here is I've used a plugin called Camel Crusher. I think Camel Crusher is awesome, and it's for both Mac and PC. It's a free plugin, and it works as a saturation, overdrive, distortion plugin, as well as has a compressor that has a fat mode to really beef up your tracks. It also has a filter, which is a low-pass filter with cutoff and resonance, and then you get a master section for volume and the mix of the effect that you're giving to the track that you're applying it to. I'm using this. You could use the filter that's in the synth, but this particular one was a little bit harder to get into. Let's see if I can bring it up here. This is the power lead. And if I open up the modular environment, I can find it in here somewhere. That's the attack, decay, sustain, and release, amplifier, oscillator 2. It may not even have a filter section, modulation. And that's why, you see, I chose to, okay, here's a frequency for the mod, that's for mod wheel. Yeah, okay, so nothing that I could find that that easily or clearly was labeled frequency. But that's what I'm fading in. It's not the overall volume, although there is a significant volume increase as this fades in. But it's just using the cutoff of the Camel Crusher filter. So now I have the plugin open. You can see what happens here over time. Let me solo this. Here's the cutoff. The cutoff starts raising up. If I go back. So that's a way I'm creating energy in the track by fading in the cutoff frequency, not volume, although I could automate the volume here as well. if you just wanted to automate the volume, you could just go any track. So here's this bell bass part here. Let me loop that and solo that. So it sounds like that. I could right click on here and say add automation subtrack, and it will add another track underneath this, which is an automation track. The first one that pops up is what parameter do I want to automate. The first one here is gain. So this is the gain of the rack. And this is definitely a way to achieve a fading in effect when you're dealing with instrument tracks that are it's just MIDI data. You're not creating a fade on like you would with an audio file. This is a way you can do it. So right now my gain is set at 1.81, and it's good to note because once you start changing that, this is actually what it's automating. So it's going to take over the control of your rack fader. So I'm just going to hold down Command to create a small part here. Just a clip. It's a container, and in this case it's an automation track. So if I double click this, what in the world is this? This is where you can create curves for your automation. Right now it's at 0. If I hold Command, I get the pencil tool again. I can create a new point and say we want it to go up to what this is at? -1.81. -1.81. Or somewhere thereabout. -1.8. Okay, so 0 to -1.8. And there is somewhere here. Okay, sometimes it's really hard to see. There's a small little node here right in the center where you can actually create a curve. So you can have this fade in more gradually or come in more sloped like this. So if I do that, now listen to just this bass part. See how it's pushing up that fader? I'm not doing anything. Now the only thing that I think is important to keep in mind when you do a fade effect like this, when you're using the gain on the actual rack, which would be like a mixer strip. You're actually automating the fader volume, which is how the old analog consoles and engineers used to actually mix the track. It changes over time, listening through the entire piece of music, making small adjustments as it was recorded onto magnetic tape or whatever they were using. But in this case, say like we get to this part here and we decide that, oh, it's a little too loud or it's a little too soft. So we want to make a change here. Once this automation track takes over, that will change back again. So again, we have this going from 0 to -1.80. And if we change it, we should change our mind down the line for the overall gain of this sound throughout the track. It's going to be affected every single time this automation comes in. So if there are more places that we want to add automation to the sound, not just the beginning, but maybe there's a drop or another build up throughout the song, and we want to add automation, that's going to take over our rack mixer strip, our volume fader, and take any changes that we've made out of the equation. That's one of the reasons that I've chosen to, let me just get rid of this automation track, and now back to the volume I had it. So that's one reason that I prefer using either a filter or a plugin. Like I said, you could automate the parameters on here. Let me show you how to do that really quick. If I go back to this power lead here, I can add another automation subtrack. And if I choose the Annihilate, which is the Camel Crusher, it just grabs the name of this plugin from the patch preset. And I can say the master volume. And it's adding another track here, so I can automate these independently of each other. So this top one, and I can rename this if I want. Let me say this is the filter. And this one is the volume or gain. So let me copy this information here. And now you'll be able to hear it both fading in the filter and the volume. As you see here doing. So it's not changing my rack volume, it still stays at the volume that I told it to stay at. It's just bringing the volume of this plugin back up to 100% once this is at 100%. I hope that makes sense, and I think that's a little bit better way to do it. There are several plugins that you can use like this that are free. You could also insert a modular device just to add gain and then automate that all within MuLab. There's also Blue Cat's Gain Suite. There are what is it? There's another one. I'll try to put these links in the description. I think FreeG is both Mac and PC. So I think these are great for adding those types of fading in and fading out effects without messing around too much with your mix of your actual racks, so that you can still mix those in the track as it plays along and get those balanced out with everything else. But you're using these as a very specific effect. You're adding a fade over time, and that would be how I would do it in MuLab.